Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Lunch and Learn. We are excited to spend some time with you and take you through some of the new features we've been working on in KeyStone. For those of you who I may not have met before, my name is Hamid Yosafi. I'm a vice president here at Key Analytics and the product manager for our KeyStone web app. Today's going to be a light, practical overview. We're going to keep things casual, keep things moving. We want it to kind of be an open dialogue. We'll have a microphone floating around. And we're going to give you a sneak peek at some of the tools and enhancements that are now available for you in the system. The goal today is to introduce you to what's new, show you how these updates can support your workflows, and give you a sense of how and where KeyStone continues to evolve. A lot of the improvements that you're going to see here today come directly from listening to our clients, hearing about how budgeting can be made more flexible, planning more intuitive, and reporting more useful. We always appreciate that feedback, and we're excited to share with you how that feedback has kind of directed some of the updates you're going to see here today. I'm going to focus on budgeting and reporting, and then a little later in the presentation, some of our talented client managers are going to take you through quickly through a couple of COC reports and some cash flow related items. If you see something here today you want to go deeper on or go further on, please reach out to your client managers. They will be reaching out to you to schedule a one-on-one training session with yourself and your team, and we'd be very eager to walk you through all these updates and enhancements at a more leisurely pace. So with that, let's get started. One of the, I'm going to start with budgeting, which is one of the places we made kind of the most meaningful updates. And I'm going to start with something we call the categorization of expenditures and of object codes. So at KeyStone, we're able to generate right out of the system these nice expenditure 5006 audit-ready expenditure reports. The way we generate these is every time we see an object code, it's routed into one of the state categories: site, planning, construction. Pretty limited set of categorization aligning with the OPSC state structure. It's great for state reporting, but it doesn't really kind of match, we found from our feedback we've received, the way facilities teams or construction managers or PMs often kind of track and manage and organize their budget and their expenditure and their actual activity. So within KeyStone, this is a chart of accounts table. We have a place to assign an OPSC category. Things like other construction or construction management, or just kind of the broad categories that fall into the state reporting here, into one of the state categories. What we've introduced is a non-OPSC category. What we're referring to right now is a non-OPSC category. It's like a customizable category you can assign any of these object codes to. As an example, this is what our overview report looked like previously. This is a $100 million budget for a middle school conversion project, where we were limited in categorizing the budgets and expenditures by site, planning, and construction, kind of limited there. With the expanded categorization, I can jump over to the updated version of the overview report, and you can see that same $100 million budget broken up in a much more granular way, in a way that might match your facilities team, how they're organizing their budgets with their expenditures. If you want to set a category for architect and planning, and one for plan check fees, and one for FF&E, you're able to do so, and then report on your expenditure activity in that updated categorized way. So we're looking for kind of more useful budget organization, better way to group and manage those budgets, and to kind of help districts match and plan the budgets the way that you guys do them internally, as opposed to kind of shoehorn you into only the state grouping structure. So this categorization kind of bears out in a lot of the reports. We've also added this nice little percentage column where you can see the total for a particular category against your entire budget. Very quickly, at a glance, I can go, okay, well, testing and inspection has been 3.2% of my overall $100 million budget. Maybe that's above or below where I need to be. Another report we have here is the budget view report, where, again, previously, it was just a tight block of site planning, construction expenses. We're able to kind of group these and organize these in ways that hopefully more closely match how your facilities team and CM team, PM team are tracking and managing those projects. So just some additional categorization to give you greater flexibility in how you structure and manage your budgets. Next, we've kind of made some adjustments and some improvements that make it easier to allocate those budgets. Oftentimes it can be cumbersome to try to set up a budget plan or allocate budgets. So in addition to this categorization, these non-OPC categories, you'll notice here in the chart of accounts, under object codes, a new budget rate column. For each of my object codes, I can assign a budget rate percentage. An editable, at any time you can change it, a percentage. So I've said here, for example, just some testing numbers. For architect and engineering, I've set a 10% baseline. For CM fees, I've set 5%. As we allocate these percentages, the system's tallying what you're at. So I'm at 95%. I have 5% left to allocate. So I'm going to go in here and allocate another 5% to other construction costs. And now the system at the top is telling me, well, you have 100% allocated as far as per object code allocations. What I can do from here is navigate to our new budgeting menu and navigate to project budget planning, where within this page, it's going to ask me to select a fiscal year. It's going to ask me to select a project. So let's pick one of the bigger middle school conversion projects. And let's build out a budget for our bond program, And maybe I've talked to my CM/PM team, I've talked to boots on the ground, and we know this is going to be roughly a $15 million project. And now I need to build a budget plan for that $15 million budget. As I select my project and my funding source, and I can collapse this and get this out of the way, the system's going to ask me for a top-line budget. I'm going to park in here. I've talked to my team. This is a $15 million project. I park in $15 million. As I navigate down, I see my budget entry table, and we can see all the budgets have been pre-allocated based on our previously entered percentages. So the system is giving you a little tool. It's going, you're at 100% of your budget. You've allocated $15 million across all of these object codes. So at DSA fees, I'm at 150,000. Architect and engineering, 1.5 million. We wanted to offer you a lot of flexibility in this page, right? This is kind of like a budget modeling, budget planning tool. You can commit the budget rows, but I can kind of play around in here. You know what? I know I'm going to need another 250,000 in architect and engineering fees, which means I need to drop that. If I'm trying to keep that $15 million baseline, the system is telling me I'm over allocated by 250,000. I'm at 101% of my total. I need to decrease my budget in some other place by 250,000. You know what? Permanent construction is actually only 6.5 million. So as I make these adjustments, it's maintaining my $15 million bottom line. I'm playing with this. I made a bunch of adjustments. I don't quite like what I see. We can very quickly reset to default, to those default allocations, and it drops me right back down to that 15 million. I can kind of use this as an interactive budget modeling and budget planning tool. We can adjust the numbers on the dollar amount, or I can go, you know what, architect and engineering is actually 15% for this given project. That means I need to drop 5% somewhere else, right? Okay, you know what, I'm gonna drop. So you can play with it this way on the number side. Once you're satisfied with your numbers, we simply click save. And I've now just built a budget model or a budget plan for one of my projects within one screen in one shot. It took me over to after I did so, it navigated me over to our project expense budget screen for the same project, where I can see that $1.5 million budget by object code category. Really, really convenient to set up a budget plan based on just a top line number and let the system do the rest of the work. Our goal was to kind of allow you to do faster allocations, reduce all of the manual back and forth, and make it easier to spread projects and budgets across different categories. So right now we have it set up where I have one baseline percentage that applies to kind of any project that I set up. but in future updates, we're going to have percentages you can choose from. Hey, I'm setting up a modernization project, or I'm setting up a new, you can set up templates almost. You'll be able to set up templates and apply those to any of your projects. So maybe your percentages are different between projects, that's gonna be common. Well, we'll give you a templating process where you can assign, hey, you know what, I want to assign this budget model to that project, and you'll be able to very quickly and easily, without a lot of manual effort, set up budget plans for your projects. So the updates I've shown so far between the categorization and the percentages, those updates are supported by broader improvements to the overall budgeting process, kind of and the budget interface. One of the most consistent pieces of feedback we received on budgeting was that the previous interface felt very cumbersome. There was a lot of back and forth. There were a lot of clicks. It was kind of an unpleasant experience. Our aim with this major update is to reduce as much of that friction as possible. Get rid of all those back and forths, reduce all that screen refreshing, clicking here, clicking there. We want to give you a streamlined, efficient, dare I say, like pleasant process as you're entering and manipulating and adjusting these budgets. So as an example, we've navigated right over to this $15 million budget we set up for this middle school conversion project, and I've got it set to one of my bond funds. Had a meeting, boots on the ground, reassessed, change orders came in. We need to now adjust this budget up or down, and I want to do so, I want to be able to do so quickly. It's as easy as this. I'm in my budget table, I have my $15 million bottom line budget. I know that architect and engineering actually is going to be $2.5 million. Well, let's just go ahead and make that $2.5 million. I know that CDE fees, this is actually going to be $175. Actually, I'm not going to have a lot of construction testing on this project. This is going to be down to $150. We're reducing that down. Capitalized equipment, I don't need that much in capitalized equipment. And actually, other planning costs, let's set that at $1 million for whatever reason. I'm as if I'm in a spreadsheet, I'm just making these adjustments in line. As I do so, the system is tracking each of my adjustments. It's going, you have 5 pending changes. I can open this up real quick. My original budget was $15 million. In total, between my increases and decreases, I've adjusted the budget by $800,000. My new budget will be $15,800,000. I haven't committed to anything yet. If I want to review my individual adjustments, I can navigate down this page, and it's showing me for every object code what the original budget was, what I changed it to, what entry it's going to make. Very, very easy to review. Within the table itself, you'll see rows that I've edited or highlighted. I can open them up as an example. This was a $1.5 million budget. I changed it to 2.5. The system knows to enter a difference of $1 million. It'll calculate that difference for you and plug it into the system. Whether you're going up, whether you're going down, the system will adjust. For construction testing, we decreased it by $225,000. Within this table, I'm just plugging in my new number. Once I'm satisfied with my adjustments, I can save all changes. And in one shot, it'll upload whether it's 5 entries, whether it's 28 entries you made across 40 different object codes. It'll catalog those and enter them all for you at one time. So in total, my new budget is now $15.8 million. It's pretty clever in terms of if I want to change the original budget, like this was a new budget plan, that $1.5 million didn't mean anything. I want to straight up change it to 2.5. On the other hand, if I'm further down the road on the project and I want to actually track my budget changes, I can enter these as changes. I can enter a $25,000 decrease here, and it will track that appropriately as a change versus an original budget, or I can change that number right in the total. This needs to go up by $20,000. It calculates that $20,000 increase. So within one page, within one screen, without all the back and forth that we were previously used to, you're able to upload and manipulate and adjust your budgets across your project very, very easily. So our aim with this, again, was to provide you with a cleaner workflow, easier visibility of your adjustments and your changes, and just kind of a more convenient and efficient budgeting experience. And we hope we've accomplished that with our new budgeting UI. Again, there's a lot here. There's a lot of steps, a lot of new stuff. We would love to take your team through a one-on-one walkthrough at a more leisurely pace. Give us one of your projects. Let's set up a new project. Let's manipulate some existing budgets. Whatever it is we need to do to get your team up to speed on these features so that you can really make the best use of them. So those are the budgeting improvements we've made thus far. Once the budgeting side is in place, kind of the next question usually is how do we turn that into reporting that's useful? And that's where I want to shift next. On the reporting side, we've continued to kind of build out reports that offer a lot of flexibility in generating the outputs that districts need. We aim to provide you kind of clear reports, whether they're for internal review, leadership, or kind of broader program communication. We just want to kind of give you as much flexibility and as many options in building those reports to get you exactly the outputs you need as possible. We've put together a new report called the Strategic Planning Report that combines the cash side of your program with the budget and actual side of your program. There's a lot here, I warn you. So I'm gonna jump over to this page right here. It's one of our newest reports, and I'm actually gonna go to the web version here. All of the reports, everything you've seen here is still driven by what we refer to as our mega filter. There's nothing new to learn. If you've used the system, if you've run reports, you'll be able to do all the things that I've demonstrated and shown you here thus far. In this example, I'm running where did it go? I'm running a strategic planning overview planning report. I've selected 4 broad funding sources. In this example, I've selected a bond fund, a developer revenue account, their state fund, as well as a special reserve fund. This district is incorporating a bunch of different funding sources to execute their program. So what we're gonna see across the top, and apologies, actually let me go to the PDF, it might be a little easier to see. What we see across the top here is columns for, in this first column, what your cash is, right? Any outstanding payables for that fund, any incoming receivables for your remaining total cash balance, okay? How much cash do I have now? What do I have on the books left to pay or coming in? This is how much cash I have in the books right now in 9110 after accounting for all my accruals. Then in the subsequent columns to the right here, what we're seeing is the breakdown of this total by funding source. So now in the bond fund, I've got 80 million in developer revenues. I have 3.1 million in cash. I've got accrued payables of 2.5 million nearly. So really I only have $644,000 of cash, right? And then it's going to show me the same information for Fund 35 and Fund 40. So a real tight breakdown on cash on each of these funding sources that I've selected. Scrolling down, we've got a nice little table for each of your in this case, I've selected all of this district's open projects. Each of the projects, a single line for each project. What are we showing you for each project? We're showing you what that project's budget is. We're showing you how much in actuals has been paid against that project. And we're showing you this nice cost to complete column. How much have I budgeted? How much have I paid against that budget? What is the cost to complete? Conveniently, that column is lined up under that cash column, under how much cash you have. This is how much cash I have. These are all my costs to complete on all of my open projects. Across the board, I have $87 million in costs to complete. After accounting for all my cash, I have $6.3 million to move forward on other projects with, expand scope, or whatever the case may be. The subsequent columns to the right are then giving you the same detail for each of these additional funding sources. In the bond fund, I have $80 million in cash. However, I have costs to complete totaling $84 million. I'm actually over budgeted, I'm over allocated in my Series A of this bond fund. We need to do something about that. In Fund 25, after accounting for everything, cost to complete of $94,000, 1.9 in Fund 35, and 8.5. Within one page, within one clean report, we're attempting to put together the entire picture, as much of the picture as we can of the program. The cash and revenue side, the budgeting and actual side. All of these numbers come directly from your systems, which are all the data is uploaded and reconciled. No manual entry, of course. So in a very clean, tight way, if we have the budgets parked in the system, we can give you a real clean breakdown on where you are at your program at any time. And you can run this report yourself. If I wanted to limit this to the bond fund, it's as simple as excluding the other funding sources I don't want to include. On the web, it looks a little, there's a lot there. Again, I'm zoomed in quite a bit here to make it all appear on one page, but we've tried to put some quality of life improvements in here to try to make this easy for you to navigate. I can get this quick full screen mode where I can navigate it. I can jump to the top and bottom real quick, where very quickly I can see what my cash is. I can navigate to the bottom here and see what my total cost to complete is and how much I'm positive or negative on a particular funding source. So this is truly kind of a cash flow report for your entire program that comes directly out of the KeyStone system without additional analysis and work and effort on your team's part. The key criteria there is, again, we are all over the encumbrance, the expenditure, the actuals activity. All day we can reconcile and upload that anytime you need on the budgets. The budgets are that critical component. Getting those parked in the system, giving you an easy way to get those into the system so that when we generate a report like this, we're looking at meaningful numbers and a meaningful bottom line. Last thing on this report, we carried over a lot of the same report builder options that are used to. So in this example, I broke it down by project. There's no grouping of projects. But if we wanted to group that by campus as an example, show me the same report, but give me breakdowns at the campus level, we'll be able to do so. So in this example, now I can see the same figures, but I get this nice campus total where across the board for Glenmore, against my overall program, I have $3.7 million as a cost to complete. These look great, blown up, printed, look great in a facilities meeting or whatever the case may be. All of the reports are downloadable as a CSV file. We've always had downloadable reports where you can get basically what amounts to a data dump of all the rows in the file, right? Kind of nice. Okay, maybe I can copy and paste some stuff out of this. What we've been experimenting with this latest report is to offer you an actual Excel download of the file. Why is that different? Why does that matter? With this Excel version of the report, I'm able to maintain all of the formulas in the report. At this point, you can almost use this as a modeling tool, as a budgeting tool, okay? I have all my cash balances, I have all my costs to complete. At this point, I can go in here and I can start playing around with some of these numbers. God, this is really, really annoying. Yeah. Zoom in?
Yes.
Sure. So as I go in here, I'm just doing some very basic, very raw analysis. I'm seeing I'm in the whole $4.2 million. What would happen, what would happen if I moved some of these? I've got $7.5 million worth of budget in the bond fund. If I park this over here in Fund 40, how does that affect my bottom line? Well, that alone brings me back up to balance, and now that's going to drop down my Fund 40 by 1.4. Oh, you know what? I know I have what if I don't do that, but I know I have a future bond authorization. I have another $65 million that's coming into play here. And I know I have developer fee revenue. Next fiscal year, it's going to total about 450 grand coming. How does that change my picture? So because all the formulas are intact, it's a great starting point. It's the great starting point for a budget modeling or a strategic cash flow modeling tool. And so we introduced a downloadable Excel file that maintains all of the formulas that you were seeing in the actual system-generated report. All right. Those are the bulk of the major improvements we've made to date. Again, I know that was a lot. We would love to take you and your team through all of these features again in a more slow, leisurely pace at your team's convenience. And then also, if you have any questions for me or for the team here today, we can pull aside, grab the laptop, take you through whatever you need, and answer any questions you may have today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Paulson, who is going to take us through one of our fantastic cash flow reports.
All right, thank you, Hamid. This is, Hamid will know, I tell him all the time, this is like my favorite report. And a lot of what comes out of this system, all of this data, you know, our process is our data team gets the data files from our clients. We upload them, they're very good, and then we come behind and we'll start pulling reports. One of the first reports I like to look at is this report, because it's gonna tell me your cash balances, it's gonna show you all your accruals, your encumbrances, then we have the budgets remaining, we can do future budgeting for expenditures and future revenue sources. So the, let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so you see here the cash balances. So that we balance right to the penny on all your cash accounts. That's part of our internal control process. When our data team does the upload, we're gonna check and make sure all of that came across correctly. And they're very good, they do a really nice job. But yeah, we're gonna get all these balances. And then this, we're gonna give out a little sample out just so you guys can take it with you. But to be able to build a future model too, you can add in those future placeholder budgets. Our system is much more flexible than your hard-coded, chart of accounts. We can call them whatever we want. And then later when you actually develop your coding, we can go through and make changes. But future budgeting, future expenditure budgets, all of that are included. So the last column here is going to be remaining funding. So that's the top section of this report, the cash flow snapshot. The bottom section is on a revenue basis. What it does is it takes your cumulative current revenue for all the bond, whatever funding sources we're looking at, any receivables, future revenue, calculates to the total revenue. Then our system is unique in that we have a revenue allocation tool. School districts, as a matter of practice, do not budget revenue on a project level basis, like you do expenditures, right? What our system does, we have a very cool little revenue allocation tool. You give me a budget, $100,000, that's going to be set aside out of that pot of money. To make sure, I always joke, superintendent can spend money 3 times, right? Michelle's a former superintendent too. But, the big thing is making sure this cash flow planning, the part that Hamid was showing you that previous report, this kind of summarizes it into one sheet, but that other one gives you the planning tools to be able to kind of play with it and see where, I know like I work with Kelly and the Van Pelt team at a large number of districts. So, we're going back and forth all the time trying to determine like which funding sources should they be using. Obviously most restrictive first, but they've got a lot of money in Fund 40. So we want to make sure we're balancing all of that. So this report right here is kind of what I call my sanity check. No matter how I look at it on a cash basis or a revenue basis, this number needs to be exactly the same. So that's the power of our system, is that we don't just look at the expenditure budgets. We're also always managing cash flow planning. And that report, the newest report we have, it basically takes this report information, the cash, all the balances, and the program funding summary we currently have. So it gives us a nice big look on where we're trying to head, where we're going, moving funding around. So it's a very, very powerful tool, and we're really excited about that report, because sometimes we'd have to pull these reports into Excel and try and mash it all together. Now we've got it built in, and it's easy to go through. We are recording this just so, because we had a number of clients that weren't able to attend, so we're trying, so when you see the Zoom, that's what we're trying to do, be able to send it out to some of our clients. And then Alicia is going to take it away on some of the citizen bond oversight committees. And when she's done, we can go ahead and take any of your questions.
Hello everyone. For those I haven't the pleasure of working with yet, I'm Alicia McHenry and I'm with Client Management at Key Analytics. And as Patty's just introduced, I'm just going to walk through CBOC reporting very quickly. And what is our team's approach our process and our methodology and how we prepare these reports for many districts by using the KeyStone system. So sorry. So first, for some background context. Following the passing of Proposition 39, November 7, 2000, a laundry list of accountability requirements were established for districts, among which was the requirement to now seat a Citizens Bonds Oversight Committee, whose main responsibility is to oversee the expenditures of the bond to ensure that districts are utilizing bond proceeds as voters have authorized. To support these new requirements, since then, our team has helped prepare CBOC reporting for over 100 districts. And drawing from that collective experience, we have streamlined a collaborative process between ours and designated district staff to prepare reports that deliver some very important objectives. We must meet Prop 39 mandates. We like to centralize data integrity by directly receiving a district's entire capital facility program directly from the county system, reconciling back to your GL to assure the accuracy that is required to withstand all scrutiny and financial audits. We like to tailor each and every report to meet each and individual district's preferences and protocols and what you are comfortable with presenting to the committee. We also want to make sure that the information that we prepare supports the Citizens Bonds Oversight Committee's responsibilities and obligations. And we also want to make sure that we are providing transparency that empowers the committee, thus in the process assuring goodwill towards the district. Now, how do we do this? Our approach is to simplify a very complex GeoBond program by making very clean, comprehensive reporting that makes it very easy for the committee to digest and understand and effectively be equipped by communicating to the public all the proceedings and the meeting's outcomes and information that is presented to them for every single meeting. And we do this by consistently making sure that every single one of our reports includes some very integral information. We want to make sure we include regular project status and expenditure report updates. We want to show the use of bond funds by project scope, project status, and timelines. We want to show expenditure categories that can be organized by site, by project type, or just listing the projects in order. We always provide a full accounting of every penny of the bond spent, and we always try to recommend and ensure that bond measures are not just tracked by individual bond measures, but to meet additional reporting compliance requirements, each individual series issuance of each bond measure is individually tracked as well. Now, how do we do this? How do we package all this and lay it out to accomplish these goals? We like to make sure that we include a bond summary of the entire program to provide that full accounting of the entire bond. We like to set expectations early on for either brand new CBOCs or for very well established CBOCs by providing an overview of very common project planning construction steps, timelines, project expense categories to help navigate and prevent questions or frustrations down the road that can stem from a committee that is quite unfamiliar with all that is involved with these very large, complex construction projects. We like to show scope and project status updates because committee members love to see the progress of these projects that they have a very vested interest in. And of course, most importantly, all of our reports provide very detailed expenditure backup, thus accomplishing one of the main responsibilities of every CBOC, which is to review the expenditures of the bond. Next, I'm going to walk through a couple of samples that we have recently prepared for a couple of our districts so you can see how does this all look, the final product of all of these endeavors. I'll begin first with Escondido, starting with a cover page, which we update every single meeting. We begin the presentation with providing an overall overview of the entire bond program, including bond language that the voters authorize. It's a bit of a refresher for the committees to review what they voted for. We like to show an overview of the entire authorization to represent what has been issued and what remains unissued to date. And of what has been issued to date, we have a chart to represent all proceeds generated by the bond, including interest and issuances deposited. And of what's been generated, we show what has been spent in total, cumulatively, since the very first transaction to the last transaction, and what remains left of the bond for current projects. Then for this district, we provide an additional breakdown as requested by a committee member probably about maybe a year and a half ago, just to show a breakdown of the revenue generated by each bond series issuance. To answer an additional question by another committee member, they wanted to understand what additional revenue sources the district utilizes for these projects, to show that, as we all know, projects are always multi-funded. You cannot rely solely on the bond, and so we wanted to be able to explain what additional revenue sources the district strategically utilizes to augment their entire bond program, as well as a little key definition guide to explain where they come from, what they can be used for. And then to show an additional breakdown of those additional revenue sources, how much has been allocated for bond projects. We also provide an additional breakdown of the district's overall state revenue program. And here we begin showing additional breakdowns of each individual series issuance for their bond. Starting with their completed series issuances, you can see here this breaks down how much has been spent out of the 62.8 total revenue generated for Series A, what type of projects it was used for. You can see how much was spent for modernization, fencing, relocatables, playground and shade structures, with the same breakdown for Series B, as well as for their currently active series, which is Series C, D, and E. Now we reach the meat and potatoes of the meeting of this particular presentation, showing the detailed expenditure backup of the active series issuances. And this district wanted to have it organized first by series, and then within each series, showing project spending by showing total encumbrances and POs tied to each project by each series issuance. With the same detail for all three active series issuances, starting with C, and then again Series D, and their most recent series issuance, Series E. Any questions on what I very quickly walked through? I know. All right, I will move on to my second sample that we prepared for East Whittier. You're going to see some slightly familiar information and some new information as well. We provided this cover page for them. Here we're listing out the committee members as well as the district staff that is often attending every single meeting. Again, we provide an overview of the bond language, what has been issued and unissued, as well as the bond language, with the same revenue and expenditure breakdown of what has been generated, revenue proceeds that have been generated, what has been spent, and what remains unspent for their remaining projects. And now we begin getting into some project details in the section and providing updates for the current projects for the bond, starting with planned projects. So that way the committee members can review what is to come. We show a construction cost breakdown explaining the difference between hard costs and soft costs to understand that, of course, a project is not just knocking down buildings and construction. It's also a lot of intangibles involved, such as surveys and site fees and designing and permits involved to help, again, set those expectations and understanding what to expect. Then we start moving on to providing the expenditure breakdown through some of the reports that we have in our KeyStone system. This district wanted to show expenditures in a very summarized view, showing what has been spent by campus and what has been spent by scope. So you can see here, we organized the 2.1 million that has been spent to date, first by site, then showing the same 2.1 breakdown, but now organized by the actual type of projects that is being used by the bond. Now we start Now we move on to the detailed project update section of this particular report. This is a very popular layout that we prepared where we update pictures showing the progress of these projects for every single meeting that we receive from the district staff. We show project timelines and status updates, as well as providing a little scope description of the project. So that way the committee can understand what kind of project is happening here. This tends to be one of the more popular sections that committee members very much appreciate, being able to visually see what the district is accomplishing. And I'm providing the same detail here for some projects that haven't actually begun, but there are perhaps only some renderings, but we wanted to be able to provide those visuals as they are underway. For these additional projects, they have some modernizations for admin buildings, some new classrooms, courtyard renderings for a remodeled courtyard, some renovation. And then, of course, we concluded this report with the detailed expenditures, thus fulfilling and satisfying the purview of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, showing all expenditures from inception all the way to the last transaction date that this report reconciles to, February 10th, showing another report in our system listing all expenditures tied to the bond, first organized by project, and then each vendor performing work for the project that these expenditures are tied to. Following the same detail and layout to show a breakdown of what, again, that 2.1 million consists of, that reconciles back to the previous summarized reports that we just walked through. And as the final slide states, I'll pause for any additional questions on the information I walked through that hopefully shows the tailored and customizable capabilities our team offers and can provide to satisfy each and every preference for every district, depending on what you would like to present, thanks to the many features in KeyStone that it makes us capable of doing so.